Hello, everyone. So today I want to talk about the unfortunate murder of a young Ukrainian woman in North Carolina. I can't remember her name. I'll put it in the title. So the important thing is what can we learn from this? All right, because as terrible as it is, I mean, there's always something to be learned from terrible things that happen. Okay, so the first lesson, all right, and this one particularly goes out to the suburban women, okay, is do not vote for Democrats, okay, because this is what you get, okay. So this was from what I understand, a career criminal. He had been in and out of jail many times, multiple arrests, and the judge, a Democrat appointed judge in a Democrat city, kept releasing them. Okay, so this is what you get, right? So this is what you vote for. This is what you get. So that's the first lesson that we get out of this. The second lesson, okay, is have a gun and always be prepared to defend yourself. Okay, so that's really important. Okay, now in this particular case, this young girl was stabbed from behind with no warning. Right, there was no interaction. The guy was. I saw the video. The guy is basically filling on his phone, I think, and then he starts playing with a pocket knife, and then for no reason he gets up and stabs her from behind. So there was no interaction. There's no way that this girl from that position would have known what was about to happen, and that's the problem. Okay, so I grew up in New York City, and this is at a time where basically I couldn't carry guns. But one of the things I learned very early on when I was, riding the subway in New York City is that there's always somebody on that train that wants to kill you. Okay, so one of the things that I learned from a very young age is situational awareness. Be aware of who's coming on the train, who's going off the train. Make eye contact with every person. I mean, don't stare at them, but make eye contact so that everybody's aware that you're aware of them. Okay, and if you're in a bad tactical position, you move. Okay, so like if I'm going to, now a lot of times it depends on how the seats are arranged. Okay, generally I want to be sitting on the subway with my back to the wall so I can see everything. But if the situation is such where that's not possible, somebody is going to be behind you, you can choose who you put behind you in most cases. Okay, so I'm not going to go sit in front of somebody, right, where I can't see them, who I think is capable of being a threat. Okay, and I don't mean that they are a threat. I'm just saying that is capable of being a threat. Now there are certain telltale signs, like usually on the New York City subway. Okay, you can tell just by the sight of somebody if they're washed or unwashed. Okay, the smell, you can smell them. You can tell who the unwashed bums are. Okay, so there's lots of telltale signs. So I'm certainly not going to put that kind of a person behind me where I can't see them. Okay, so again, this goes back to my high school days, right? This is like very basic stuff that I learned, just growing up in New York City. A lot of it came from my parents, who again did not come out of the gun community. Okay, but these are like very basic survival skills that you need to know if you're going to be riding public transportation. Okay, you're not going to be sitting there with headphones in your ears so you can't hear anything, right? I want to hear everything. Okay, don't sit there with headphones in your ears or looking at your phone. Now, this is not to say that I would never not glance down at my phone, or I might not be doing something on my phone, but I'm doing it in such a way that I'm also looking up and being aware of what's going on. I'm certainly not going to be doing it if there's people behind me that I can't see. Right? So if I position myself in such a way where I can see everybody, and I know that the person to my left and my right are, like, let's say, two old ladies that are not they're not capable of being threats to me. Maybe then I'll start filling on my phone, and every 30 seconds or 20 seconds I'll look up and scan the area and just make sure that nobody has moved, see if anybody's new has come on or off of the train. So again, these are like very basic survival skills for living in a city. People spend like many years like going to school, going to college, learning all this stuff so that they can develop these careers and make money, right? But they don't learn like the basic essentials of staying alive. Okay. So yeah, you gotta, these are important skills that you gotta know. Okay. So if you're in the city and you're riding public transportation, or even if you're like in a, in a public, in a room that's public, right? Like maybe on a subway platform, or even let's say in a public theater or whatever, you gotta be aware of your surroundings. So one of the problems that in general I have found with women, okay, and this is like most women, okay, is that they intentionally try not to be situationally aware. They try not to make eye contact. They try to look down and ignore everybody, right? And you'll typically see this in the gym, right? They put on the headphones, right? And they don't look at anybody because they're afraid that everybody's gonna hit on them. Fuck that shit, man. They need to look at every motherfucker, and they need to let everybody know that they know what's going on. Okay, that's how women have to be if they want to survive. Okay, and that's what I train people to do. Okay, so as a full-time gun instructor, and I say just like that, so that I get that point straight across. Okay, if somebody's hitting on you, okay, if somebody's hitting on you, right, you always got the option to tell them to go fuck off, okay? You always got that option, right? Right? But if somebody's trying to kill you and you are not situationally aware, well, you cannot undo that, okay? So again, I'm actually saying this in exactly the same way I will actually communicate this to women that take my advanced classes, to get the point across that you gotta know who everybody is, who's coming, who's going, where they're standing, and who is a potential threat to you. Not a potential threat in the sense that they're gonna hit on you and make you uncomfortable. That doesn't even enter the conversation. Okay, this is a question of who is going to actually hurt you, and you're not gonna avoid that by not looking at them. Okay, so. Again, this is actually like part of the reason why I wanted to do this video, because I'm hoping that women see this video and get it in their heads that, you know what, you're trying to avoid the small, uncomfortable situation of telling somebody that you're not interested in it, right? You're trying to avoid that, but you're inviting the much bigger problem, okay, of somebody stabbing you from behind because you're not situationally aware, okay? So that's really the important part of this video, okay? I'm using this unfortunate situation that happened in North Carolina to this young girl, all right, to get the more important message out there that you need to be situationally aware. You got to look at every person, and you got to know who's coming and going, and you got to make that eye contact, and you got to let everybody know that you're in charge, that you're in charge of yourself, right? You know what's going on around you. Really important. So that's like one of the main, like when I teach my self-defense classes, that's like one of them, like, at the point where I'm actually doing like a self-defense, like gun training class, they already know how to shoot the guns, right? Because we've covered that and they've already learned that, okay? So when they're coming to a self-defense class or a personal protection type of class, the first thing we talk about, okay, is situational awareness, and, knowing what's going on around you, knowing how to avoid certain problems, knowing how not to be in certain places, okay? And it's not just a matter of like not being, let's say, in a subway late at night or bad part of the neighborhood late at night. It's not just that. It's a matter of even during rush hour, picking and choosing where you're going to be on the train. And if you need to stand up and stay standing the whole time so that you can watch everybody going in and out, then do that, right? Because there's plenty of times where I was and this is going back to my college years where I was riding the subway. I didn't like the people on the train. I didn't sit, right? I stood in a position where I could, I couldn't find a seat that, a seat that gave me a tactical advantage, right? So I stood the whole subway ride, right? The other thing is you can just get out of the train, next time it stops and just go into another train, right? You can change carts if you don't like what you're seeing in that particular train. Okay, so these are the important survival things that people need to know. And again, when I teach a self-defense class, right, at that point they already know how to shoot guns. this is the starting point. This is the main thing that we start talking about, right? Because if you're not aware of what's going on around you, I mean, I don't care if you got a freaking machine gun on you or a freaking bazooka, you're not going to be able to use it in time, okay? You got to know what's going on around you, right? And that's all the time, man. That's, you know, I mean, now, fine, granted, there's many situations where I go in and assess situation. Yeah, I either know everybody here or I can see that nobody's a threat. You know, everybody seems to, you know, be having those two having a conversation there, those two having a conversation over there. There's a couple over there, mom with her kids over here. Hey, nobody here is a likely threat to me. You know what? I bring down my defenses, right? Maybe I'll start fiddling on my phone there. But, you know, every time the door opens and closes, I'm watching who's going in and out, okay? So, yeah, these are the important things to learn. Again, people spend way too much time learning things just so that they can make money, okay? When they should be learning things so that they can stay alive, okay? Those are the important things. Those are the things you learn first, and then you worry about, you know, how you're going to pay for your television and your car and all that other crap that you want to have, okay? So anyway, I wanted to use this opportunity to get this important message out there about situational awareness, okay? And, you know, because like I said, I'm going to say that, hey, everybody should be carrying a gun and be trained and ready to protect themselves. And people will tell me, hey, but how this woman got stabbed from behind, how is she supposed to? She should not have, she should have been trained to not put herself in a situation where she's got somebody behind her that she's just like completely not aware of, okay? I mean, I would have took one look at this person. I said, hey, you know what, this guy's probably, I mean, I would have said this guy's probably just, you know, minding his own business, but I just would have selected a different seat to sit in, you know, just to be on the safe side. Okay, I would have probably sat, because there was like an older woman in that train. I probably would have sat on the other side, in front of the older woman, right? And again, this might be, hey, maybe that guy wasn't crazy. Maybe he was a businessman. Maybe he was a banker. Who knows? Maybe he was, you know. But still, I would have picked the person to sit in front of that cannot possibly be a threat to me. Okay, that's how I would have done it. Other thing I want to say with gun training, one of the things that I do in my advanced training classes is I actually do role playing, right? Where I act out different scenarios where, let's say in one scenario, I might be verbally threatening somebody from a distance. In another scenario, might be closer, you know, so I actually get people used to, different types of threats and what the appropriate response should be. Like in this scenario, you can get away from them. In that scenario, you don't have the option of getting away from them. They're already attacking you. You have to respond. Okay? So again, these are things that when I train people, I want them to get used to that kind of stuff. And if most of the people watching this channel that are gun people, you know, self-defense is not just going to the gun range and shooting at a target and hitting the target. That's learning how to shoot a gun. But that's not self-defense training. Okay, self-defense training is actually done with a gun simulator, right? Not with real bullets, because the way it works is we either got real guns and fake targets, right? And you can learn a whole bunch of skills with that, but that will only get you so far. Okay, to learn combat skills, you got to actually use real people and fake weapons. Okay, that's where you actually learn the combat skills, the actual, how and when to fight and get used to actual combat type of situations where you're under threat. Okay, so that has to be part of a self-defense program. Okay, self-defense training program. Okay? So anyway, drop some comments. Let me know what you guys think. The comments help push the algorithm. And one more thing I want to add, and this goes back to this concept that I used to hear a lot of times growing up in New York City, where they would say, hey, staying, in crowded places, because if something happens, people will help you, right? That's something that I would hear a lot. Okay, utter bullshit. Okay, this murder, right? You can see people just sitting there in the train. Nobody moved to try and help or prevent this. And I'm going to tell people outright, people do not care if you die, okay? They don't, right? As long as they're alive, as long as it doesn't affect their lives, in most cases, people do not care if you die, okay? Now, of the minority that might care, all right, and might be interested in helping you, Problem now is that they're afraid, hey, if they help you and they end up killing that person that's attacking you, well, now they might be arrested and they might face prosecution. And that's happened many times, particularly in cities that are run by Democrats. Okay, so the incentive, the legal incentive, is for people not to help you. Okay, that's what the incentive is. So it is fair to say that they are not going to help you. There's no benefits to helping you. There's penalties that they can face for helping you, but they're never going to get a reward for helping you. Okay, so safe to assume that nobody is ever going to help you, and it is up to you to be armed and trained so that you can protect yourself and your family.